Hello, everybody, and welcome to Compassionate Conversations. I'm Tanys Coughlan from My Place Home Care, and I am joined by my co-host, Heidi Gagne, also
Hello.
from My Place Home Care. Thank you for joining us this morning as we have someone who I am honored to call a very good friend, Jennifer Jurkofsky. She is a psychotherapist with many talents. And we're going to have a conversation about a bunch of mental health stuff today. So that's
Yes,
what we're
we are.
talking about.
We know how I am passionate about mental health and talking about it and getting awareness out for everybody. And so very excited to have Jennifer join us today.
Awesome. And we thank you all that are watching as well. Thank you for joining us, and feel free to ask questions if they come up for you. Okay, thank you. Jen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with the psychotherapy and all of that?
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on. My journey with mental health. So I started in the field of mental health over 20 years ago. And I started off as a social worker. That was my undergraduate degree. And I worked in mental health through recovery. I worked in forensic intensive recovery programs. I've worked with children and youth, and kind of everything in between. And here, of course, we're talking about, caregiving and what that looks like. And so, when it comes to my journey with mental health, I think the biggest thing for me has always been holding space for where we're at and being able to recognize what is going on in our journey and how that shows up. And so often in different difficult situations, we don't give ourselves that grace, whether it's because we just have to keep on going, we have to hold the line, we have to be strong, whatever it is we keep telling ourselves, we don't allow that authenticity to come through and go, I'm actually really struggling here and I need support too.
Yes. And that is a huge topic. That is a huge thing to remind yourself that it is okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
In my mental health journey, mine was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I realized I'm going to crumble. I'm going to lose everything that I am if I don't find somebody that can help me to talk, because I was the pillar, I was the rock, I was the shoulders. I held my entire family together in their mental health journey. And yeah, and it's hard to ask for that help. It's hard to take that step.
Especially when we're used to being that rock. Like,
Yeah,
I
the
think many
fixer.
times, I was going to say women, but I really think that it's both. There's usually one in a relationship that tends to be that kind of stronger person, in terms of, okay, we're going to go this way. It doesn't mean, not in a controlling way, but just
No.
that sort of guide, And I think when that person has stress or, is dealing with stuff on their own, it does really affect like the family unit.
Oh, it does.
I think that's it's a great topic today for
Mm-hmm.
that.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, and even without getting into specifically caregivers for people who are going through dementia symptoms and things like that, just that emotional load that can come from being the decision maker.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's, that in itself can be a burnout that we experience and having that overload. And so even if, you're saying, well, okay, I'm here, but I'm not really caregiving for anybody, this still really can apply in the sense of really checking in with yourself, taking your own temperature. Where am I at? What is my capacity? How full is my bucket? Right? Yeah. Do I need to take that time to refill for myself so that I have more to give? Is my bucket full of holes? Am I giving too much all the time?
Yeah.
And the more that we check in with ourselves, the more we can take care of those things. Actually, the better we're going to be at giving and providing for others.
That's right. And advocating for those that we love and ourselves. And it's everyone, I'm sure everyone's going to get at this point. It's going to reach that point at some point in their life where they are tapped out. They have no more room in their bucket. Their bucket is full of holes. It looks like receive. I have no spoon to give to anybody else. My bank is empty. So many different analogies for being completely worn down. And discussions like this, I hope, help highlight it and make people think, yeah, it's okay. I can keep that spoon to myself. I'm allowed to make sure that that spoon is, I have one spoon left for me, because without that, what are you going to do? How are you going to eat? You know? And so I do find it, I like how you were referring to this as your journey, as our journey through life, because we also refer to that when we're talking about people living with dementia. We call it the dementia journey, because it is a journey, and and everything is different. There's a challenge. There are walls that you overcome as the person living with dementia, but also as the family that surrounds them and loves them and cares for them. And I think we had talked about it earlier, that's kind of where we want to go with this particular podcast with mental health. It is also still January, which is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, so it ties in nicely. But it is that how do you provide care for somebody who is changing in front of you, and they change, and what they used to be able to do can't be done, and they might not be able to do it as well, or their personality completely changes. And how do you deal with that?
Well, and there's a grief component to that, because
That's right.
you're losing an aspect of that person, or you're losing the person that you used to know. Sometimes they can become a completely different person.
It could be they might have been a comedian all the time and made you laugh so much, and suddenly they become serious. How do you deal with the fact that you've lost the component that attracted you for the first time to this person, and now it's not there? How do you work through that? So, Jen, how do you do it? Enlighten us and fix everybody.
We can go here. I think on one end, I'd love to look at what is actually happening for the dementia journey. And the more that we understand how to meet them where they're at, the more it can help us with the process in that caregiving space. But then also, we were talking just before about pre-grief that comes up, and what does that look like? And with dementia, it's an ambiguous loss, because there isn't a clear finish line in terms of having closure or clear ending, because we always are in this place of ongoing uncertainty. What's next? Who am I going to meet when I go in there? What is this going to look like? And so, because dementia creates this ambiguous loss, the caregiver, the family member is going in, and the person that, as you're saying, that they knew is there, but is also not there at the same time. And within us, that causes a lot of dissonance. We don't know how to manage that sometimes, right? This person is still physically present. I haven't actually lost them. They're not gone. And yet, because they are psychologically different than who they were before, we're constantly having some layer of chronic grief that is happening. And, when we talk about trauma, there's this unresolved mourning that often happens, that keeps our nervous system constantly activated. And it is so important that we name it, that we hold space for it, that we acknowledge it, and that we allow it to have its process. So often people will go, well, no, it's okay, or it's not that bad yet, or, I'm handling it fine. But the more that we can actually be present with it and go, yeah, it's hard. Yes, I'm suffering because this keeps coming up inside of me.
Yeah.
I love them and I want to be there for them, but I don't know who they are anymore.
And
I think
guilt comes.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And then there's shame. Because I'm feeling guilty and I'm frustrated, or I'm angry at the situation, or I'm angry at the disease, or whatever it is that's coming up. We have to be willing to face it. And that, I think, is that's the hardest transition, right?
Yeah.
Be able to go, I'm hurting. I'm hurting too.
So we were running a dementia learning and conversation series, which was open to caregivers of their loved ones who are going through the journey of dementia. And on our last day, our dementia nurse who is doing the training, she's been on our podcast a couple of times. Her fiance joined us on the last day because his second wife, she is currently in a home with dementia, and he shared his story. And what caught me off guard, because I've spoken to him a few times and he has mentioned her, but he basically said in front of a room, well, there wasn't that many, it was just maybe 5 or 6 of us, but he said, up until yesterday, talking about this would have made me cry. I would have been very upset. And I don't know why, but for some reason today I'm okay and I can talk about it. And I just thought that was really powerful. I mean, her journey started in 2013, I think. And, here we are in 2026 and she's still a part of his life. And it's just, I was like, man, all that time and everything that he dealt with and everything he had to do for that he still does for her. And it wasn't up until that day that he was like, okay, I can talk about this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that would have been hard.
And the tough part about grief is he could talk about it that day, but maybe today he might have more difficulty again, right? Because it's not a linear process.
No. Grief is secular. And so when we talk about cyclical, circular, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Right? So we talk about stages of grief and, we present it as, okay, we're going to go through the stages, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, right? And we keep going, but it doesn't work like that because it's, they're around a circle and we're kind of like boom, 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 like a pinball, right? Within that thing. So one day you might have acceptance and the next you might be back into depression and then you might start bargaining again and then you're going to go back to denial and then you're angry and then you're like, okay, fine, I accept it. And then you're bargaining. You know what I mean? Like it is very much, where it's not one phase and then, okay, I've resolved that and now I move on to the next phase. It's layer after layer of going through each of these. That is the actual process.
Right. And it's worse with dementia because the person with dementia could, so their memory is a little off, right? But then something could happen and suddenly they're always angry. And there's one thing that anyone who has any experience with being with somebody with dementia is you're always the one at fault. You always have to say, I'm sorry. And that is going to wear at you. 100% it's going to wear at you. Even when I say it in our training sessions or anything like that, like, I'm like, that sounds ridiculous because I can't always say it's my fault. That's against my nature. Like, no, I'm not always wrong. But that's what you have to do because you're not going to win that argument. So again, you get to this stage where something happens and your response is, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. And then inside you're like, okay, so here's another change, and you're going to go through that whole grief cycle all over again for this one specific change. And that's exhausting and that's difficult to hold inside.
Absolutely, because it is this repetitive responsive grief. So every time you feel like, okay, I've reached acceptance, then a new decline happens, right? And a new experience comes in and it pulls you right back into the cycle over and over again. And this is another piece of that ambiguity because you don't know when that's going to get triggered again. You don't know how that's going to get triggered again. And so your nervous system is hypervigilant. And this is where we end up with chronic stress and burnout and compassion fatigue and all of the health issues that can come along with caretaking.
Yeah. So what sort of things, aside from talking to a psychotherapist or a group therapy, support groups and that, what can we do in that moment of you're really frustrated and you're feeling that you're in one of the cycles of grief? What can you do in that moment?
Yeah. Well, and your nervous system needs care.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that you are able to take that step back, right? Taking breaks, I think we tell ourselves, if I take a break, I'm abandoning the person. But taking a break is sustainability. You have to be able to take that step back and go, I can't today, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Being, doing grounding practices before you enter a caregiving interaction. What are you doing to ground yourself? Are you taking those deep breaths? Are you, doing some nervous system regulation practices for yourself before and after? Sometimes we need even just micro moments of rest. Can I take 60 seconds of breath? I'm going to just go to the washroom. I'll be right back. Right? That ability to just give yourself that moment of support that you need.
Yeah.
In order to be able to continue.
And even just stepping away will help. Will give you that moment to recharge.
Absolutely.
And without, you're not abandoning them. You're not running away. You're literally taking a step out of the room and just going, okay, I'm going to eat a chocolate bar. Like, that's what makes me feel good. I'm going to eat a chocolate bar.
Or a banana.
That's right. Okay, I got a chocolate. You go to a banana.
No, I like the chocolate too. I'm just offering a healthy choice.
Chocolate and banana, they're good together.
Oh, there you go.
But it's true, and there are grounding exercises that you can do fairly quickly, right? Breathing is definitely one exercise that is very easy to do. One that I really love, it's very simple. It's the triple warmer hug. And so when we look at meridians, they pull from each other. And so the triple warmer meridian, which is responsible for our fight, flight, freeze response, pulls from our spleen. And so we can get very drained quickly when triple warmer is in reactivity. So you're just hitting a spleen point, you're hugging yourself, and they're hitting a triple warmer point, and you're holding that, and you're just giving yourself a hug and taking a deep breath.
Oh.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, your meridians are those pathways within your system, within your body that run energy.
Yeah, so Chinese medicine, acupuncture, acupressure, all of that is using meridian lines whenever they're doing any of that work, right? And then you just switch it up, other side, right? So spleen is just right at the brow line, and the triple warmer is just above the elbow. All right, just hold some space for that for yourself. My computer likes it. Right, and then release. Okay, I'm good. And then step back in.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, and I wonder, like, that is kind of almost natural, because I know when I've been stressed out in situations or frustrated, like maybe I'm not pushing the right points, but sometimes it's just a matter of like, you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, I just need to feel me for a moment. And unknowingly you might be hitting those points because that's just naturally how you kind of hug yourself. And you're doing it unknowingly, because I just thinking back, I'm like, there's been a lot of times where I've been frustrated, and it's just like, okay, yeah. I just need a moment.
Our bodies know what they need, right? So oftentimes if we can listen to what it's telling us, like we need a hug, then it's telling us what we need to do.
Yeah. And this is that, like, protecting my energy, right? That I'm closing it up, I'm protecting myself for a moment, and then I can get.
Oh, it's so exhausting.
Here's a question about that. Does that help drain the limbic system?
So for drainage, there's definitely points and like movement that you can do along that does drain it. But most of that is like bringing it to the heart and all. So this is a little bit different, but it's the pressure points that you're hitting. So.
Yeah, the limbic system, I think, is more connected to your lymph glands and all of that, correct? Yeah. So when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with the lymph fluid, and I think what you're referring to more is the energetic distribution. So
absolutely.
Our pleasure.
You answered your question.
Yeah, but it's true. The body does naturally know. I mean, you think about it, when we get stressed and things like that, how often is it like, right? We just sit down and we put that pressure. Well, this is the start of the triple warmer meridian, It's that immediate, like, okay, I'm going to calm my system. And we do it without even thinking about it because we are on a very subconscious level aware of what our body needs at any given moment.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much on these podcasts. I didn't know that. But yeah, like I do that a lot. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's better than banging your head on the wall.
Yeah, that doesn't have the same effect. No.
I used to use my my wrist protector. I used to bang that on my head when I'd get frustrated at my other job, my old job, because it didn't hurt. But yeah, but that fight, flight, or freeze, which I love how they've added the freeze to that now. It used to be just fight or flight a long time ago, but I love the freeze because I find that's what I do is I freeze, and I don't want to do anything. So you know, I talk to people who are the primary caregivers of their loved ones living with dementia, and you know, sometimes I just get off the phone with them and I need a moment because I don't even know how they deal with it on a regular basis, constantly. And then the guilt and I snaps to anybody who is dealing as a caregiver, whether it's dementia or not. But it is so important to take care of yourself. Because if you collapse, what happens?
Well, and the other part of that is the emotional burden in terms of, we were talking about guilt, but there's also like, I don't know this person. So my feelings may have changed. Like I could have been married to this person for 50 years and now all of a sudden I don't even know you. I'm not sure I really love you like that anymore. Like, you know, there's the guilt of not feeling like you can do anything about that. So you're living with a stranger that is angry and you feel unsafe and you can't change it.
Yeah.
But then you talk about
feeling.
Yeah. Right? But then you talk about, you know, okay, let's find a safer place for them to live. So you look into a retirement home with assisted living or memory care unit, and then you get your whole family. You get everybody. Well, why are you putting him in there? Why are you putting him there? He's fine. You lived my life. You talk to me about it.
For all of those of you that are family members of somebody that is in this situation, please think about what their partner is going through. Right? Put yourself in their shoes. You don't, if you're not living with the person, you can't know what it's like to be there.
No, that's right.
No, so. And you've got to remember, like, here we are. So as a caregiver, we're grieving. We're exhausted. Still showing up with love. But there's probably anger and resentment because who in the world even is this person anymore? And then there's the anticipatory grief on top of it, right? That you're losing this person. And it's more than any one person should ever carry. And I think that deserves so much recognition. So honor everything that you're carrying if you are in this position. And when that shame or guilt comes at you from others, right? You should be more patient. You should be able to handle this better. Why are you sending them away? You know, all of that kind of stuff. To be able to, and I know this is hard. This is hard for all of us all of the time, but to go, not mine.
Yeah.
Right? Just because that is somebody else's opinion, they're not living my experience. They don't.
That's right.
And maybe somebody else who is living a similar experience can handle it. Great for them. If I'm not in that place and I can't do it, that's okay. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. That means that I'm human.
Yeah.
And I need to honor that.
Well, and I think it's hard as well. A lot of people coming in as secondary caregiver or just as a friend, I'll go hang out, you know, no problem. But the person with dementia is going to be different in front of you because you're not their comfort zone. You're not, like, they might not specifically remember their wife or husband, but they know this person is there, that this is going to be there for me all the time. I can say whatever I want. But then somebody else comes in, they're going to be kind of on their best behavior. You know, they're not going to be comfortable. They're not going to be able to, they're going to say, yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Because that's what, when we're not with our safe people, what do?
Yeah.
We fawn.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. We're fine. And so then that person coming in doesn't see what the person living with them will see every single day or on an ongoing basis. And so it's really, you really need to be as judgment free as possible when you're talking to primary caregivers of a loved one, because you don't know what they're going through, because everybody is different.
And I think it's good to note that even for everybody, we don't live with the people that the other people are living with. We don't know what they're like yet. You never know what's behind closed doors. You know that expression? It's because people like revert back to programming because they don't need to be on, you know? And so they revert back to whatever programming they have. And with dementia, that's just increased, right? Because there's no filter anymore either.
Well, and here's the thing, right? When it comes to dementia and how it changes the way that the brain processes information, it doesn't actually erase the person. It just changes the way that they're able to process everything. And so when we look at the behaviors that often come out of that, that's because communication is failing. Like they don't have that capacity in the same way. And what ends up happening is that comes out as agitation, repetition, right? We have this, this resistance that comes in, and we act out on it when our needs aren't being met or when we don't feel like our needs are being met. And because as a caregiver, you're going in and you're bringing that compassionate lens and you're trying to help them and to ground them. But when the reality doesn't always match the experience, right, we have to recognize too what's happening in their nervous system. Because they're still experiencing the responses within the body. That anxiety still shows up, and that's where the agitation comes from, right? Depression and withdrawal happens, right? They're having fear and loss of control, and there's shame and embarrassment and loneliness, and all the things are still there, right? Those feelings don't actually go away. The capacity to navigate them does.
And to tell people that I'm feeling alone, I'm feeling scared. The communication is not, it can sometimes go. And so they can't tell you what's bothering them, which is then frustrating as well, because you then have to sit there and figure out everything. And you're a detective when you're dealing with that sort of thing, is you're constantly asking, well, are you hungry? Do you want a snack? Are you cold? Do you need to go to the bathroom? And, then you sound like you're nagging, and then you feel like you're nagging. And if you're a wife who has felt like they've been nagging their husband their whole lives to do things, then it just adds to that feeling again of,
so I think this is the other frustration piece when it comes to, as a caregiver, what can we shift in ourselves is I don't have to always try to figure it out. Sometimes it is okay for me to just go and sit and be a familiar energy.
Right.
If I can just go in and be calm, have a steady tone, hold that space so their nervous system can regulate with it, maybe that's all I need to do.
Is just stay calm.
Right? We
say that a lot too.
Yeah, but as caregivers, right, we do. We want to go in, we want to fix it, we want to hold the space for all the things. And then we're carrying that massive load. But instead, if I can just go in and go, okay, I'm just going to sit with you today. What do you want to do?
Right.
Talk about something? Do we want to, whatever it is, but just allowing for that calm regulation can sometimes be the most impactful thing that we do.
And I mean, that relates to any situation. Like if you come in with your shoulders tense and you're raring to fight about something, you're going to fight about something. It's going to happen because that energy is just being thrown around by you. And, somebody's going to snap it up and go, yeah, I have the same energy. Let's go. Which is never a good thing. And unfortunately, as a caregiver, you also generally have to be the one to remember to remain calm and to take that moment and take that breath.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's not their process. That's not their mental process.
And that's also hard to accept, though.
Yeah.
Especially when somebody was so even keel, you know, they were always the calm person. You're always the one that got riled up in your relationship, and you were the one would arrive guns blazing. And now this person is doing it. And you're like, oh, I have to be the calm one.
Yeah.
Which is hard again, and accepting that and changing that is also difficult.
Yeah.
And this is where pre-loss and anticipatory grief are also really, really important to hold space for, because if we're grieving, we're not showing up the same either. And so because with dementia, the families, caregivers are grieving long before the physical loss of the person, we have to recognize the impact that has on us, and then how we show up as well, right? It's not, so often we focus on, well, they're changing. Yeah, but so are we. And we have to recognize and honor that as well, right? Because now we have a loss of shared memories. What we've bonded over before may not be there. As you were saying, familiar roles, right? That might not be what's happening anymore. And so, we're grieving that every step of the way. And if we don't recognize the grief that we're holding and how that comes, we're not going to recognize the triggers that happen by the small changes. Every time our nervous system takes another hit because something else has altered.
Yeah.
Well, and the roles, like you were saying, Jenna, it's like you're all partners, right? And then all of a sudden there's this other role introduced, and it's only small. And then the partner thing starts to shrink, and this caregiver role takes over everything. And that is a huge shift in dynamic.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
In roles, in duties that you need to perform in the house, in, how you show up for the rest of the family. Maybe you were not the one that did all the, family gathering organizing, and now you have to. And really, if we don't have that as a skill, it's like a whole nother skill building that has to happen as a caregiver too. So added to all the grief that you're having, you're also having to build new skills, new capacity to do these other things that the other spouse might have done, or the mother or father, whatever the case may be, right? Whatever that other person, we all play a role in our household. So whatever role that is, you have to learn that other person's role. Well, if you think about what it's like to go to a different job, and all of a sudden you're learning all these different roles and how tiring that is. You add that to the grief of the diagnosis and where you're going and what that is going to mean. That's overwhelming.
And then if you add on to your own health, you develop health issues, and you're caring for this person, and now you're not doing well. You injured your hip, you broke an ankle, and suddenly now you're dealing with everything and more. It's exhausting. Again, snaps to anybody who is in that position. And I mean, we get a lot of calls from people, okay, my dad has dementia. My mom's been taking care of him. She fell. She's now in the hospital with a broken hip. We need help.
Yeah.
And that is not an unusual call for us. It's not an
quite
unusual
common,
call at all.
Actually.
Yeah. That is, my parents, my dad was taking care of my mom. And now he's not doing well. He's in the hospital. What do I do? It's devastating to hear, because how do you plan for that? And that takes a toll.
And I think this is such an important piece for everybody, because families often grieve quietly, right? They feel, because there's this confusion, and it's like, okay, I'm grieving somebody, but they're still here. We need to take a step back too and just recognize that grief is not just about like death, right? Grief is whenever there is meaning, connection, identity, any kind of change or shift that is not what we want or what we hope for or our expectation. Anytime that happens, there is grief involved. And we need to recognize that. And so here you are with this, and sometimes it is quick, right? We know sometimes this can progress very quickly, but a lot of the time it is gradual.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time there's a new goodbye, there is another layer of grief that comes out. And because there's also this part of us that maybe feels guilt or shame, like I'm grieving and they're still here. I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be feeling that way. You know, we oscillate now between numbness and overwhelm. Overwhelmed. Our
Yeah.
nerves can't keep up with this. Right. And so there's this confusion that happens within the caregivers and the family because they don't even know where anything is, and they don't want to make the call to, you know, send their family member into a home or supported living, but they also don't know that they can keep them safe where they are. And there's, you know, I think that the biggest thing in all of this is naming it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The more that we are open and communicative about where we're at and what's happening, and we hold space for that, the easier it is to be able to navigate it. It doesn't make it easy, but it lifts that burden a bit because we're not suffering through it alone.
Right.
Right? And I think that that is such an important piece, because the more that we hold it in and we try to figure it all out, and this is like for anything mental health wise, right? I mean, the example I like to use is how, and I know I've done this, and I don't know anybody who hasn't, but have you had that experience where you're thinking about something and you're thinking about it and thinking about it, and it sounds so good in your head, and then you go and you're like, and you say it, and you're like, that sounded a lot better in my head. I'm going to have to rethink that.
That's where good friends come in, right? Because you can say it to them and be like, yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah. Oh no, I just heard what I said.
Yeah.
Not a good choice.
Sorry, never mind.
That's an inside thought.
Right. But there is that beauty in the moment that we voice it, we actually face it, we confront it. Right. So if we're in a place where we've been, you know, we're having this dissonance, we're having this guilt and this shame for feeling this grief and doing that, you know, and not knowing what to do and feeling like we should talk about it, voice it, don't hold it in. If I could leave you with like one major thing, and I know we still have time and we're not going anywhere, but yeah. But what's really coming up is just talk about it. Find somebody in your life, in your experience, who can hold that space for you where you can go, I don't even know what I'm feeling right now. And that's okay.
Yeah. I cannot express how important it is to have that person or persons. I am so lucky. I have 2 girl groups that I have, and both of them I can verbal diarrhea. This is what I'm feeling. I don't know what to do with it. And, you know, and a lot of them will be like, okay, are we figuring things out? Are you venting? Are you just need validation? Do you need validation? What are you looking for in this? And, you know, sometimes it'll be just like, I need to get this out of my head because I don't know how to, it's spinning in every different direction in my head. And each scenario is getting worse and worse. And it's not going to happen this way, but I need to get it out. And so having those people that I can talk to about absolutely anything, is amazing. And I know I'm very lucky that I have my two chat groups that, you know, we all hang out at different times, and I love it. And I love being part of that group because I've had friends text and in a message going, okay, anyone want to go for coffee? And you're like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Yep. Because when that call is made,
yeah,
they're asking for help. So yeah, I will make it work, you know?
Well, and I think it's important what you said there about asking, you know, what is it that you need from me today?
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes it is just that holding space. I'm just going to be here and, you know, listen with a compassionate ear, non-judgmental. And other times it is like, it's okay, girl. You got this. Like,
Yeah.
it depends on the day, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's important. And sometimes if you don't know, you just need to have someone that's just going to sit with you until maybe you do know.
Yeah.
And that you can voice it, because sometimes we can't right away.
It's very true. And being able to talk, and even if it's like if you're a kid and you talk, what is the talk phone, the help phone for kids, where they just need to talk about something. And then, they have that for adults too. And, just sometimes getting it out and verbalizing what you're feeling can release so much, and allows you to actually start to think a little clearer.
Well, and having a psychotherapist or a counselor is also an important aspect, because that's somebody who, they have no vested interest in your life. Do you know what I mean? They're not there to judge you. They're just there to, like, you can say anything and it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And then they can also give you the tools that you need.
Yes.
To help yourself move forward through it.
And having that free space to talk.
Yeah.
That free, and I've had my oldest daughter has gone through a lot in the last few years, and it came to a point where she would be talking to me or venting, or like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I am at a point right now where I can't help you. I can listen, but if you're looking for solutions, you need to find a professional. And it's not in a mean way. Like, I literally do not have the capability or the degrees to help you at this point. But if you want me to listen, I'll listen, but again, me in mental health, I'm pro mental health. I'm pro professionals talking to people, because having that unbiased, and that person that will remember. Yes, they write notes and they have all their files on you, and that's okay, because there are a lot of times where I'll be talking to my husband and I'll say something and he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh my God, I told you about it yesterday. He's like, I don't remember. When did you say that? I'm like, oh my God, I was crying. You don't remember? But your therapist makes notes, so they will remember, and they will validate you when you're feeling particularly abandoned or ignored. Yes. They will validate that by knowing what you're talking about, because they're paid to listen to you. So it doesn't hurt.
Well, and most of them care.
That one.
Literally, their job is to listen to you and help you.
Yeah.
So you're getting that, that is, and some people just need that. Some people need to know that safety, that somebody is listening and remembering, whether they write notes or not, or however they remember, they do. Because my therapist, I've said something and she's like, oh, okay, so like 6 months ago when you said this, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't remember 6 months ago, but yay for your note. But and that is important to a lot of people, of feeling heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can celebrate your successes with them, right? Because
that's right.
That 6 months ago, you're looking at what you said 6 months ago versus what you said now. And you're like, hey, look at that progress. Look how great it is. You can do that as well.
And that's when you deserve the Yas Queen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing that you were saying, about telling your husband, you don't get the same emotional reaction from a psychotherapist, right? Whereas if you're telling your spouse or friend or whatever, there could be an emotional reaction if it's even remotely related to whatever your relationship with that person is. Mm-hmm. Right? There might be an emotional reaction. Whereas when you have a counselor or a psychotherapist, they're not having that, because they don't have the vested interest that your peers do.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So while it's great
Jen, we took over your conversation about what you do.
but it highlights how important it is to, if you are at this stage where everything is insurmountable, and no matter, I have a therapist, because no matter where I was, and I have great friends that are supportive. I have a supportive family, a supportive husband. I am very, very lucky in that. And even at that point, it wasn't enough. I needed more.
this is the thing with therapy and mental health. And I love that mental health is becoming less and less stigmatized, but I do know that there is still a lot of stigma around it and all of that. But the truth of the matter is we all can benefit from just having someone to talk to that is outside of our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
And so, if everybody in the world could have a therapist, that would be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would allow for us to really process what's happening inside of us and to have somebody who's willing to go, yeah, I'll walk that journey with you. Let's go.
Yeah. And has the ability to guide you
Mm-hmm.
in a way that you're receptive to. And they'll take their time and they'll help you get to that point where, okay, no, I can do this on my own. I'm good.
Mm-hmm. I say that to clients often, right? I probably have the only job where my job is to work myself out of a job.
Yeah.
Right?
You're only successful when you work yourself out.
So often I've had clients who go, yeah, but you know what? I'd like to just have continual check-ins, even if it's every few months, just because knowing that I have somebody that I can go to, that I can just share where I'm at or what I'm going through, who's going to be able to hear me, who knows my story, who knows where I've come from, right? And can hold that space for me and knows where I want to go. And so can say, hey, did you think about this? Or have you considered that? Or wait, what's that? That was from over here. Why'd you bring that back into your journey? What's going on there? Right? Like to be able to have that, that outside looking in kind of approach helps for us to go, oh, right? Like my pattern, I didn't think about that. That's interesting. Okay, now what do I want to do with that?
Or you get that scope creep with patterns, right? They creep back in. Even though you've done the work, they could creep back in.
They do.
You gave up doing that when you were in counseling, and then all of a sudden you're like,
yeah,
oh, wait a minute. And we might not realize it. So the check-in is good for that.
I
can say, oh, there's that pattern again. Yeah.
I had a recent mind-blowing experience with my therapist. I was good at a good place. I didn't need to see her for a year. I was very proud of myself. But then again, I started feeling patterns coming back, slightly different circumstances, but the patterns were coming back. And recently, like on our second return, she said something to me, and because I have this horrible thing of not feeling like I'm enough. Whatever I'm doing, it's not enough. I'm not enough of a friend. I'm not enough of a mother. I'm not enough of a spouse, daughter, everything. So it was literally the last 5 minutes of our session. And she's like, just because the outcome isn't always successful, it doesn't mean it isn't because you didn't do enough. And I was just like, are you serious? Like, I even have it on Post-it note on my wall. Like, I keep it with me because it hit me so hard.
Yeah.
And that is what a psychotherapist can do for you. They can pull out that kind of mind-blowing sentence. And she just said it offhand. Like, it was just like at the end of our conversation. And then we kind of went over because I started bawling.
That's what happens when it really rings for you.
Yeah. And like I was speechless for a good 35 seconds. And I mean, I've been doing podcasts now for a year and a half. We know I'm not speechless. I can talk. But I was speechless because I'm like, whew. And so I have it on a Post-it note and I have it ingrained in my mind and I have used it. So even if you feel like your psychotherapist isn't, you're not feeling like you don't have that mind-blowing thing, but sometimes something they say will come back and hit you and you're like, oh, here it is. And having a professional that can help you with that is, I think is amazing. And I think, I think what you guys do it's fabulous, and there needs to be more and compassionate souls that are doing it for the good of people versus
just the money.
Yeah. I mean, you should get paid for it. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's an energy exchange, right?
Yeah.
They put a lot of energy into it. So the energy exchange.
But
that whole thing about being seen, right? About allowing somebody to actually see you for who you are. And I've said this with clients before, is my job isn't to fix anything. And truly, your job isn't to fix anything either. My job is to see you for all that you are until you see that within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah. You're not even my therapist in that.
Okay, write that down, Heidi. We'll talk about that
Right?
later.
I need a Post-it note. I got a long way to go. It's all right.
But this is the thing, and even in this idea of caregiving and how we were talking earlier about trying to fix everything, right? How we go in as the caregiver, this idea of, am I doing enough? Am I being enough? Right? And to go in and to just sit with somebody and to hold that space to see them for all that they are, even though they don't remember, even though they're somewhere else at that point in time. And to be able to hold that space, even for a short period of time, can be such a wonderful thing that we have capacity to do.
Right.
For one another, for those that are on this journey, right? For, our family and friends, and then for us.
Right. And you said join, you want to be in that moment with them. But I was just thinking, with dementia, a lot of people are living in a past moment.
Exactly.
But you can find your peace by joining them in that moment.
Exactly.
So if they're talking about their dad who used to work in the field, was a farmer, join them in that moment. Because you're not trying to stop them from going to that spot. Join them, be with them, learn about it.
More.
Yeah. Oh, what was his favorite? All farmers, they love wearing their plaid shirts. Did your dad have a plaid shirt that oh yeah, he always wore the blue one. Have conversations. It doesn't matter. Join them in that moment with them. And then your peace will be able to come too when you stop fighting it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tools that you use, Jen, for people that are having grief or this, even the anticipatory grief? What are some of the tools that you use? Because I know that's part of the journey as well.
Absolutely. So, when it comes to therapy, right? Obviously talk therapy, which can be very valuable. But then I also use EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And that allows for, the way I like to explain it is, imagine your brain is a file room, right? And so every day we have all of these experiences, and we, at the end of the day, our brain goes in and it files everything away. But whenever there is something that is deeply meaningful or impactful, whether it's traumatic or just it had a heavy impact on us, the brain goes, oh, this file is really important. I'm going to leave it here on the table in the middle of the file room because I need to make sure I have access to this right away, right? I want to be on high alert about this. The problem is that now every file that comes in, if it's even slightly resembling that file, it gets filed with it, right? And now we're just building that. And so with EMDR, what we're doing is we're preparing, that's the resourcing part of it, to go into the file room to begin to sort through all those files and start putting them away. And telling the brain, it's okay, we're safe, we can do this. We can put these files away. If we need them, we still have access to them, but they're not going to continue to infiltrate every new memory that we have, right? So in EMDR, while the founders of OEI, Observed and Experiential Integration, while they were doing EMDR, what they found is that the eyes would glitch at different parts during the bilateral stimulation. And what they noticed through study is that those glitch spots were actually trauma that was held in the neural pathways from the eyes to the brain. And we can clear that. And so OEI is used to help clear those pathways. So sometimes we don't even have to go into the file room. We can just clear that trauma from that pathway and allow ourselves to regulate so that it's not so impactful anymore. So these are two really great tools to use with trauma work. And, when we're looking at grief, I think that because there's almost micro traumas that are happening as we're going through this process with loss, it's a beautiful way to be able to release some of that so that we can be, Heidi, as you were saying, really present with them wherever they're at and be okay in that space.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does that process work? Like how, like the eye, how does that, well, like, what do you do in the moment? I'm curious. Like,
I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want people just going out there willy-nilly trying to do stuff when they don't have any kind of informed understanding of it. But the idea is that our dominant eye holds a lot of our anxiety, where our non-dominant eye holds a lot of our sadness or emotional state.
okay.
And so sometimes just simply looking at a situation and allowing ourselves to just cover it is the physical sensation growing? Is it lessening? If it's building or it's just still really there, I'm going to check the other one, right? And wherever it feels better, I'm just going to stay there for a minute and let myself regulate.
Oh, I see.
Basic part of OEI in terms of how it works. Because what happens is when we're going through all of those filters, by the time something hits our brain, we're not having a new experience anymore, right? We're living through something else. And so if I can actually block that pathway, I have a moment to ground and sit in this experience in a new way.
Huh. That's interesting. I've never, well, I did read it on your website, but I didn't know what it was. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So
well,
what other,
you also do the basics, right? The cognitive behavioral therapy and some of those, or do you not?
I'll use it a little bit. My CBT is like the big therapy, right? Because evidence-based, blah, blah, blah. But I say blah, 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 only because there's so many things that are evidence-based. And then there's so many things that are really powerful that are just not as easy to study. And so they don't have as much of the same evidence behind them, but they're still very effective. What I use is ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. And it is the third wave of CBT. So it's still within that cognitive behavioral framework. But instead of looking at it, from the triangle of like behavior, emotion, and thoughts, we're kind of expanding on that. And what it does is it looks at 6 pillars. So the first one is mindfulness, right? Can I just be present in this moment? Can I notice what's happening without judgment? Can I just hold space to observe, right? Becoming the observer. I know we talk about that on Twillow Talk a lot, right? Can I just become the observer of my experience? And then experiential acceptance. So can I sit with the difficult aspects of my experience? Not because I want to suffer, not because I'm masochistic. I want to sit with these difficult experiences so that I understand what's going on and I can begin to release them, right? If we just bury everything in, it ends up exploding anyway. Whereas if I can just sit with it and go, okay, I'm really angry right now. Okay, what's going on here? Right? What is this anger feeling coming from? And that's that diffusion piece, moving from I'm angry to where is this anger coming from, right? To recognize that I have these thoughts, I have these feelings, but they're not who I am. So how do I gain a little bit of separation so that I can be that observer, right? And look at self as context, like who am I, right? Am I enmeshed in this? Am I the observer? Who do I want to be in my experience? So we look at values and value-based action. What is actually important to me? Not what should be important to me, what people tell me is important to me, what is expected to be important to me, but what is actually important to me in my experience? And then how do I move towards that in my life?
That's a
big
lot. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
but I could just like just the way you're describing it, I almost felt release just realizing that, yeah, that's possible to be able to do that, to step back and to just observe and figure out where, like Tanys and I, we've talked about this before of what's the why, what, where, who, when, and what and how, like let's figure this out. And then then you can kind of either move past it or work through it. And, you know, you don't have those 2 a.m. wake up in the morning going, oh my God, remember what I did when I was 21? Oh, that was awesome.
Or not so awesome.
Right? That was a sarcastic awesome.
Well, and this is where beautiful somatic practices can come in for the nervous system, right? If you're having trouble falling asleep or wake up and have trouble getting back to sleep, anytime the body is activated, something like the basic exercise, which I know we've done on Twillow Talk a bunch of times, can be really helpful. Now, the basic exercise is Stanley Rosenberg with the Rosenberg Institute. I can show you where it comes from really quick, just because I have it right here.
For those of you that aren't aware, Twillow Talk is a podcast that Jen and I do together on Mondays at 5 p.m. So
it's accessing the healing power of the vagus nerve. And so he's I never get it right, but like a cranial sacral somebody. But he did all the studying so that I can just tell you about the exercise. So what you do is you just kind of cross those fingers and put them behind your head. And this is great to do laying down, sitting down, never standing. Only because you might feel a release in the body, blood pressure change. But you just lean into that, and then eyes to the right, as much as is comfortable, until you get a yawn, a swallow, or a sigh. I always yawn because I do this all the time.
Me too. Just looking at you doing it is doing it.
I come back to the center, take a deep breath, let it go, and then again to the left. And again, you're looking for a yawn, a swallow, or a sigh.
I do it often too. So
Right?
that's the thought of, I'm going to do this. Oh yeah.
Right? Release and just let yourself settle into that. And this is beautiful because it resets the vagus nerve. So whether we're in, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, if we're in activation or shutdown, it brings us back into what's called a ventral vagal state, which is that place of social engagement. It's like, okay, I'm back in here. And the thing is, like, the more activated we are, the longer it takes. And it's so, I see like there's a comment there with Laura, I can't seem to get anything when I try it. Because when we're in that place of activation, what ends up happening is we'll be sitting here and we'll be doing it, right? And then the mind starts. Well, this is never going to work. What are you doing? Why are you bothering doing this? Da, 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 da. Right? And we cycle through. And so you have to really just kind of, okay, I'm just going to keep breathing. Mind. I'm going to breathe and let it be what it is. And then as we do it more, once we're able to get the release, the more we do it, the faster it comes. And then the less
do it in you yawn.
But it's tough because we, I know we're at time and I'm going on about nervous system.
No, it's interesting.
But what happens is, so we have our baseline nervous system, right? Like this is where everything is good. This is where we start off. And then life happens. Right? And we get activated and activated and activated. And if we don't bring it down, when we finally do, we only bring it to here. Then we get activated, we bring it down. Activated, we bring it down. Right? And now our baseline is so far from where our original baseline was. Now, if we only do these calming exercises when we're activated, we're never getting it all the way back down to our original baseline. So we have to do these practices when we feel good too.
Right.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Okay. Right? Until we bring ourselves back to that baseline. And so it's important that we're doing these all of the time, regardless of whether or not we're in an activated state. So I tell clients every night before bed, every morning before you get out of bed. Right? These are great times to do it just regularly to help keep the nervous system in check, right? I'm going to just check in with my nervous system. Okay. Right. I'm going to clear anything that came up in the dream time before I get up for my day. I'm going to clear whatever happened during my day before I go to sleep. Right. And if you can at least try to do it those times, then when you actually need it, when you're activated, one, you're going to remember it more likely, doing it often. And two, it's going to help that much faster because your body's used to, oh, this is what we're doing right now.
Right.
Well, and how many times have you been stressed or activated and not even realized that you were, because it's so close to like your normal, and then all of a sudden you're like out of your own space, or you're somewhere where you realize that you're more calm, and you go, oh, I didn't realize how activated I was all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that much more if you are in a caregiver role, like we've been talking about, because it is that hypervigilance and that constant state of when am I going to get the next call? And when is the next thing going to happen? And what am I going to have to handle? Right? You don't always realize how much you're holding.
Yeah.
exactly.
Until you get to release as part of it. And then you're like, well, wait, I like that. Let's do that
Then
again.
you want to do it again and again.
Yeah.
Well, it has been such a pleasure, Jen, to have you. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today about all sorts of things mental health. And it's always awesome sharing the screen with you, as we do often. And thank you for sharing your expertise with our audience.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise.
I did too.
Yeah.
Always learn.
Exactly. So don't forget to come and see Jen and I, and also Jen's, all of her links are in the bottom if you want to take a look at those, and follow and like.
I do want to say before we go, because we're talking about the power of having somebody to support you. And I, in my practice right now, actually have 2 absolutely amazing student practitioners who are offering low cost and some pro bono spots. So if you're struggling and you're going, yeah, but I can't afford it, or I don't have insurance, or I don't, whatever is going on in your experience, please feel free to reach out. They have availability. They're under my supervision, so you're getting me through them. And so I don't think that anybody should just use that excuse of like, well, it's not accessible. Please feel free to reach out, say, hey, I saw you on Compassionate Conversations. I'm looking for some support, and I will work with you to see who would be a great fit and get you connected. So nobody has to be without that care.
Very important.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So come back and see us all. We will be back again, Compassionate Chats, middle of the month next month. And we'll see you soon. Have an awesome day, everyone.